Good evening everyone, thanks so much for stopping by. It's Christine here and I'm really excited by the next prompt that we've received for Roxy's Journal of Stitchery down the garden path. And the prompt we've been given for this 2-week period is vegetable garden, herb garden, and if we want to, a scarecrow. Like with the previous prompt, I found that I immediately had an idea of what I wanted to create for this, and so I'm going to go with my gut and follow that through. And the idea that I had as soon as I heard the prompt was a place that I visited now many years ago. I've looked back at my blog and worked out exactly when it was, back in 2009, and it's in France, and it's a place called Chateau de Villandry, and it's in the Loire Chateau country, near or within the vicinity of Tours. So Tours was where we were staying at the time, and we took a 40-kilometre cycle trip there and back, so 20 kilometres each way, and we took that trip out through amazing countryside, so bright green ears of wheat in fields and peas and lush pastures, little farmhouses, lakes, and we had a beautiful picnic. I think it was by the banks of the water, and then we spent the afternoon wandering around both the chateau but mostly in the gardens, because the gardens are absolutely spectacular, and it's regarded as one of the greatest Renaissance chateaus to have been built. So all the gardens are laid out in really geometric and detailed fashion, as you can see here, and they're just tended with an amazing amount of care. So I'm going to include some photos at the end from our the day we visited the chateau, including the cycle trip out there. And the chateau itself, it was fine to wander around, but yeah, really the gardens that grabbed me and stay in my memory. In the chateau though, there was, on the day we were there was an amazing exhibition on with lots of paintings of different vegetables and food items. So I also took some photos of those, and they might provide some inspiration as well. I'm wondering if I end up getting through this prompt ahead of time, I might even make for another section of my garden a little harvest basket or a table or something like that, a table sort of with all the harvest on it. So what I've done here is, because I knew it was going to be hard if I was just free form stitching or even if I was free form drawing, to capture both the aspect of looking down on and across the garden, which is what I wanted. I didn't want to just be a purely down on the garden sort of view. I wanted to be looking across, almost a bird's eye view, because when we were there we were looking out from the tower across the gardens, and I thought that would be hard to capture if I was doing freeform stitching or if I was trying to draw it myself. So what I did was printed out a photo, and then I've used Modge Podge fabric to transfer it onto my base piece of sample fabric, which is from the reverse art truck. So making really good use of all my different sample fabrics, and it's a nice heavier weight woven, because I'm finding that really good to stitch on for this project. I don't get the same problem with my pieces shrinking in too much because I'm using a heavier base fabric. So what I did was printed out my picture on the inkjet printer, so inkjet on this occasion, and then I took my Modge Podge, and using this great little, it's meant to be a dough scraper, I think, for if you're making bread. Got it from the Japanese $2 shop in Japan called Can Do, which is my favourite $2 shop in all the world. I think it's the $2.80 shop over there. And so I put my Modge Podge on my piece of fabric, so on the front of the fabric, in the area where I wanted to be putting down my image. And then I used the dough scraper to spread it across the surface and really push it into the surface of the fabric and make sure it covered the full area. And then after that, I gave this a wash, and then I took my piece of inkjet print, and the side that had the printing on it, and put the side that had the printing on it down on top of the Modge Podge. So you have your front of your fabric, you have your Modge Podge, and then I had my piece of printed paper with the printed side down into the Modge Podge. And with my clean version of this, I then, over the back of the paper, did all the pushing down and scraping to make sure the paper really contacted with and sat really firmly onto the fabric. And then I left it for a bit. I think it would have probably been about 15 minutes to it could have even been a little bit longer, until the paper was starting to adhere and dry to the base. But then from the corners, I just inched it a little bit with my fingernail and saw if a layer of paper was coming away, which it was. And then it's actually really easy to peel all the top layer of the paper off, and as you can see, it's still taking a bit of the colour off. I don't know if you leave it a little bit longer whether all the colour stays, but because I'm going to be just using this as my guide for the garden beds and stitching over, it doesn't actually matter that it's a slightly paler print as it is. Now, just something to be aware of with this method, you are actually left with a very thin layer of paper over the top, but the thin layer of paper takes on the consistency of, I guess, canvas, because you can screw it up and it's not screwing up and becoming like really fragile like paper in its original form would. It's taken on the texture of, I guess, like a canvas or a thicker sort of fabric. And it's perfectly easy to stitch through. We can see that in a little bit. And yeah, it's a great base for me to have, but I'm planning to cover it all with stitches. So for this piece, I'm thinking I might just at this stage stitch up to where this area is at the very back, because I'm thinking that could then be my introduction to the next piece in my garden, but we'll figure that out as we go. And I'm thinking potentially this piece might be just over the wall from the last piece that I did. So if you've watched my previous video, you would have seen the finished product of my secret door and wall, and then in the foreground my little robin with the key to the secret door to the secret garden. And so I'm thinking potentially the grass at the top of my little secret door wall, secret garden wall, might be there, and then we might be looking across that to this particular chateau garden. But we'll wait and see. This piece might go further up my fabric scroll, depending on what other prompts we get. So I don't know if we just want to do maybe 1 or 2 stitches just to start to get us going. So I'm thinking in the foreground we might do some French knots, and then I'm planning to surround those by a darker green. So I'm going to use this variegated pearl to do the French knots, and then I'm thinking I'll do a darker green, maybe this sort of a green around the outside as the sort of leaves of the cabbage. So I'm thinking these will be 2 green cabbage and then a purple cabbage bed. So let's, oops, can't remember if I actually knotted that while I was talking. Nope, I did not knot the end. So that won't work well. So I hope you're all having a lovely day. It's Monday here. No, it's not Monday here, it's Thursday here. My goodness. Just got lost in the stitching and the whole week just went away. I don't know what's going on. It's Thursday here, almost the weekend. And here I was wishing me back at Monday. So that's what happens when you stitch, you just lose all sense of time. Oh, excuse me. Just got a tickle. So that's a French knot. I probably didn't do that quite as neatly as I could have, but that's okay. And then I'll jump up somewhere else in, just so we get that variegation in the colours as well around the patch. So I'm doing 2 twists over my needle for the French knots. And as you can see, with even with that thin paper layer, it's still perfectly easy to push through. I wouldn't use a really, I suppose you could use a fine needle. This is a decent sized needle. So it makes it that little bit easier. But the good thing is it's sitting nice and sort of, yeah, flat, and it won't sort of pucker in. So I might just do one more of these. Actually, we probably should use up a bit more thread and get a bit of variation happening. And so I'm not thinking I'll do a scarecrow, because I didn't see a scarecrow in the gardens at the chateau. But I will try lots of different stitches just to have that variety of stitches. But I think this is going to be a fun little one to just, yeah, relax into the stitching of. Lots of nice repetitive stitches, which is sometimes really good for slow stitching, that meditative sort of state. Oops, I haven't threaded my needle. So this variegated thread is quite interesting because it's got a sort of a whitey colour in it. Put over here. So it's turned very funny in weather here. Of what should be summer, we're having a bit of an icy blast. So the rain was pouring down before, and yeah, we've got chilly temperatures, I think, forecast. And they're even forecasting some snow on the hills, which is amazing for summer in Australia. That's that sort of lighter colour coming through now. So yeah, the variegated thread is great for just getting that variation without having to constantly change your thread colours. Oops. Pulling it through. So you could do even more twists if you wanted to have ones that were slightly bigger, but because I'm going to be putting the leaves around the outside, I don't want to make them too big. And when I get further back in the patch and want them to be smaller, I might just use the regular embroidery cotton and possibly use it at a reduced number of strands. Where am I coming up there? Let's pop up there at the very back. So I might stop with the French knots there, and I've done a dodgy one there, so I'm just going to fix it up by popping back up through, and then I might just twist it around and bring it back down to hold it in its proper French knot formation. So you don't have to worry if you do a dodgy one. You can obviously chop it out, but that's formed a perfectly good French knot for my liking. So I might just tie it off on the back. French knots, I think, as I've mentioned previously, they tend to hold quite well anyway because they're actually creating a little knot. And then maybe we can just do some, which one did I say, this colour? Yeah, probably this one I think goes better with the lighter. I think we can probably use it at its full size here, particularly if we're going to reduce as we're looking back over the patch. Just tying a knot on the end of the thread. So I just worn away part of the side of my piece, which is why I've left plenty around it. So eventually I will chop it down, but I'll leave it at this stage because it's good just to have a bit to hold on to around the outside. Just make sure I'm staying on camera. So I'm just going to do some little stitches around the French knot. So I've gone just part of the way around just with a normal stitch, and I want to leave them a little bit loose so that they actually sit out a bit from the fabric, I think. And I'm not going to put them right next to each other, so I'm leaving a little gap, I think. We'll see how it looks, but that's the plan. A little gap so that and I don't mind if my veggies sort of overlap a little bit over the edging of the garden bed, because that's what they naturally do anyway. My vegetable patch, it's all gone absolutely crazy out there. I'm sure the rains will make it, yeah, go even more. Although the tomatoes are taking a bit longer in some cases to to ripen up. So I'm not sure if you can see that, but we've got little bits around the outside. And I wonder if I could potentially even do one, maybe I'd actually use a different colour and then even add in a few more little ones as well around it. I might try that and see how that looks. And I can show you next time I come back. Because I don't want to make this too long of a video, I just wanted to share my starting inspiration. In case anyone's feeling a bit stuck, feel free to take inspiration from this to the extent that you want to. So really enjoying this project, so thank you very much Sarah and Rachel for your continued fabulous creative inspiration, and thank you to the other so far ladies. I haven't come across any other chaps on here who are doing the project as well and sharing videos. I've actually got quite a few to catch up on because I haven't been watching as much of the YouTube lately. I actually got suckered into watching some actual TV, and I think I've got another one of my favourite TV series that I was watching. I think they're bringing out the next season of it, but I'll have to make sure I still get my crafting video watching in. So that's probably enough stitching for now. I'm just continuing to do those little stitches around the outside to evoke the leaves of the outside of the cabbage, and I'll continue doing that, but I'll probably first of all put my little cabbages in, and then I can do the stitches around as I go. So I think it will end up quite a full bed by the time I'm done. But there you go. So you can see it's got there that sort of central colour of one colour and then the outer leaves around it. So I'm really happy with how that's starting to shape up. So I might say farewell for now, and I'll put the videos, I'll put the photos at the end of this video of the day trip that I took out to Chateau de Villandry. So you can enjoy the inspiration of some more images of the place and what is really inspiring me for this particular stitching project. So take care everyone and enjoy the photos, and hope to chat to you soon. Bye everyone.